It was a bitter winter night in New York. Snow drifted down from a heavy gray sky, covering the sidewalks and softening the city's usual roar. Streetlights flickered as icy winds sliced through the avenues. At a nearly deserted bus stop, Henry stood beneath a weak awning, hunched inside a worn olive jacket. In his hands, he clutched a manila folder like it was the last thing keeping him upright. Inside were 5 resumes, 5 silent rejections. He exhaled slowly and watched his breath cloud the air. 46 years old, once a structural engineer, a husband, a father, now homeless. The thought settled heavily in his chest as snow gathered at his feet. The red glow of a pharmacy sign nearby blinked. 8:41 p.m. The bus was late. The cold had soaked through his boots and crept into his bones. Then through the falling snow, someone else appeared. A woman walked toward the bus stop, heels clicking sharply against the pavement. She looked to be in her early 30s, dressed in a neat business skirt and blouse, hair damp and clinging to her face. She had no coat. Her arms were wrapped tightly around herself, shoulders tense as she tried to fight the cold. She stopped beneath the same awning as Henry, her breath short, her hands shaking as she rubbed them together. Henry noticed her immediately, then looked away. People passed each other like this every day in the city, close enough to see, far enough to ignore. He told himself it was just another night, another stranger, another bus to nowhere. But the wind suddenly howled harder. The woman flinched, curling inward as if the cold had struck her all at once. Henry glanced at her again. His jacket wasn't warm. It was thin, old, and fraying at the seams. But it was something. He could keep it. Stay silent. Pretend he didn't see her suffering. Instead, he made a choice. Without a word, Henry shrugged off the jacket. The cold bit into him instantly. He stepped closer and held it out. The woman looked up, startled. "You don't have to do that," she said. Henry gave a tired, almost apologetic smile. "I've already lost enough today," he replied softly. "This coat, it's the only thing I have left to give." She hesitated. "But you need it more than I do." Gently, he draped the jacket over her shoulders. "Not tonight." The warmth surprised her. It smelled faintly of soap and coffee, comfort. She pulled it tighter around herself without realizing it. "Thank you," she whispered. They stood there in silence as snow fell all around them. After a moment, she turned to him and asked his name. "Henry!" "I'm Claire." "Nice to meet you, Claire." The low rumble of a bus approached, headlights cutting through the snowfall. Claire stepped toward it, then paused. She reached into her purse and handed Henry a card. "In case you ever need anything." He nodded and slipped it into his folder without looking. People said things like that all the time. Most of them didn't mean it. Claire boarded the bus and glanced back once. The jacket wrapped around her like armor. The doors closed. The bus disappeared into the snow. Henry stood alone again, shivering, not just from the cold, but from something quieter, heavier and unfamiliar. He looked up at the dark sky and whispered, "Maybe tomorrow." Before walking into the night, Henry made his way through empty back streets, snow crunching beneath his shoes. There was no rush, no one waiting. Behind an old warehouse sat his home, a rusted 1998 Chevy pickup. He climbed inside, shut the door, and sat in silence. Blankets were piled on the seat. A lunchbox rested beneath the dashboard. From the glove compartment, he pulled out a small tin box and opened it. Inside was a faded photograph. His wife, Lily, smiling brightly, and their son, Noah, about 7 years old with a crooked grin. "Good night, Lily," Henry whispered. "Good night, Noah." Memories flooded back. He had once built schools and hospitals. Lily had taught kindergarten, laughing even when life was hard. Then cancer came. 9 months later, she was gone. Bills piled up. Savings vanished. He sold the house, moved into smaller spaces. Then the truck. He tried to protect Noah, turning hardship into games, parking lots into playgrounds, until the day a social worker said it wasn't safe anymore. Henry didn't argue. He signed the papers, hugged his son, and promised, "Just for now. I'll come back for you." Across the city, Claire stepped into her sleek apartment, the warmth wrapping around her. She slipped off the jacket, then paused. Something was in the pocket. She pulled out a folded piece of paper. A child's drawing, 2 stick figures holding hands beneath a crooked sun. Dad and me, at the bottom, I love you, Daddy Noah. Claire sat down, clutching the drawing as tears filled her eyes. The jacket, the man, the sacrifice. It reminded her of her own childhood, of being cold, unseen, and the stranger who once gave her his coat. The kindness that changed her life. The next morning, Claire sat in her office, the drawing in her hand. She called her assistant and asked her to find Henry. Days later, she stood beside his truck. When Henry stepped out and saw her, surprise filled his eyes. "I came because kindness like yours shouldn't disappear," she said. They stood there, two lives from different worlds, connected by